Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL Graduates and welcome back to another Game Week guide video. Lots of European action in midweek this week, so a lot of football to play. And yeah, we're looking forward to Game Week 23. We're going to be going through some of those targets that we think you should be looking to potentially transfer into your team. We're going to be looking at captaincy options as well as some other bits and bobs and answering some of your questions as well.
Yes, so getting into it, we're going to talk through a few defenders, one midfielder, but a bit topical. And then there was so many questions about Manchester City, so they have their own little segment as well. Obviously, if there's nothing that's covered in here that you want us to talk about, obviously do comment it down below, and we'll try and get back to you before the deadline. Starting off first, then we've got Nordi Mukiele up first with Sunderland. Looking at a couple of defensive assets at the moment. Obviously, West Ham away and Burnley at home provide two clean sheet fixtures for them. Although that Sunderland away from home, their defensive data is pretty poor compared to their home data. Michele's 4.4 million now, getting close to that Dan Ballard price tag. You can get into this defence for cheaper with Reynildo, Alderete, but obviously in Reynildo's case, the defcons aren't quite there where it is with Mukiele, Alderete, and obviously Ballard. Ben, you brought him in last week. Happy with him?
Yeah, fairly happy that I've got actually already one of these transfer targets, which is not something that we've either of us have said too many times so far this season. But yeah, for myself, I think Mukiele is worth that sort of 4.4 million, potentially even sort of 4.5 as well. He's sort of head and shoulders and seems to be the Gabriel almost of Sunderland in terms of his attacking returns. Four so far this season, which is pretty good, all things considered. And yeah, the next two are really good in terms of fixture. So as a bit of a differential, but also as a bit of an enabler, because a lot of managers are going to have sort of a few expensive defenders in the team. It actually works out quite nicely, and the defcons for him as well are pretty much the best out of those Sunderland options as well.
Yeah, indeed. Moving on to another defensive option, then we're looking at Murillo now. Obviously, Nottingham Forest this season haven't necessarily set the world alight. A lot of people went on them at the start of the season due to the DEFCON potential, specifically with Murillo and Milenkovic. Since Sean Dyche has come in, though, the defensive data is very good. It's actually one of the best in the league. And with some fairly okay fixtures coming up, I think it's a defence you could look upon if you do need a replacement. He's 5.2 million, so a little bit cheaper than what he was at the start of the season. And yeah, similar to what we said about Mukiele, really. His DEFCON's very consistent. Not really the attacking returns that you get with Murillo. He probably will score from the halfway line at some stage in the next year. It seems like he's got one of those in him. But I think overall, fairly solid pick. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, fairly solid. And Forest look to be sort of picking themselves up and getting a little bit of momentum going, especially with sort of the defensive assets. We obviously saw the Brazilian keeper come in, not do too great, get injured, and now Selves is back in. So maybe there's a bit of familiarity with that, with the Forest defence. So yeah, I don't mind Murillo as an option. I think there are definitely some attractive options, nearly a million cheaper that you could consider. But if you've got that little extra bit of money in the bank, I don't think it's a bad idea to consider Murillo for your team.
Yeah, third and final defender for this video, then it's going to be Daniel Munoz. He's on his way back from an injury, and before that, he was unbelievable in FPL. I remember owning him at the start of the season. 7 clean sheets and 6 attacking returns in only 1,200 minutes is really good. Obviously, an update will be needed from Glasner for you to be fully confident in this, but from what he said last week, he said that he was back in training. He'll be in for a full week's training this week, and then hopefully available for that Chelsea fixture at home on Sunday. So yeah, really excited by him. He's definitely someone I'm going to have on my Game Week 24 wildcard. Just even if, a lot of people might get put off by Crystal Palace because of Gahey leaving, he just carries so much attacking threat on its own that the clean sheets are almost a bonus with him sometimes. So I'm more than happy to take the punt in there at 5.8 million next week. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, I don't mind him as an option from an attacking perspective. If you're looking at, I don't think you can look at the fixtures with someone like Munoz because I don't think that Palace defence is going to be as secure in clean sheet potential going forwards. But completely in agreement. I think his attacking potential was really high. It's just sort of whether you'd weigh up sort of paying that 5.8 million premium, because it is fairly expensive for what you're getting if you're not guaranteeing those clean sheets going forward. So that's the only thing I would consider. But other than that, he's an all-round very good FPL asset.
Yeah, moving on to a midfielder then, and we've got Bruno Fernandes, and it's going to be a little bit of a long-waited one, this one. So obviously a lot of people were moving from Foden to Bruno at the weekend. We saw a price rise there for Bruno, and obviously Foden has dropped in price. I find that a little bit crazy personally, selling Foden before Wolves, even with how bad Man City have been playing in recent weeks. Bruno, though, obviously Mr. Consistent. He always picks up points. You know, it's not necessarily always double-digit hauls, but we saw that his return against Burnley picked up points. He returned again against City at the weekend. Arsenal away, though, is probably the worst entry point for any attacker in the game. So, yeah, for me, I wouldn't be purchasing this week, but certainly eyes on him next week. A lot of people are asking between Bruno and Mbumo. I personally think Bruno is the better asset, but will probably try and own both. What's your thoughts on Bruno, Ben, and maybe that Bruno Bumo decision?
Yeah, I mean, look, the entry point isn't this week for those Manchester United assets, but next week I think Bruno's 100% viable. And look, I think even if you're paying point 1 or 2 million more than what he currently is at, I still think he's good value. And we've seen this season actually, sort of statistically speaking, team value has held the least amount of weight this year compared to sort of the last 3 or 4 seasons. So it hasn't actually mattered as much your team value, even though we've had some crazy price changes with those with all those free transfers that we got given. So yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes is the best asset for Manchester United, and it's just whether you can fit him into your sort of squad structure. If I had to make a decision, I'd go Bruno over sort of any of the United assets, not just in Burma.
Yeah, we're in agreement on that one. Let's see if we are on Manchester City's minutes. It's going to be an interesting one going into this weekend. Obviously, they lost 3-1 to Bodo Glimt in the Champions League after losing 2-0 in the Manchester Derby. So it's not been great for them. They did look quite impressive the game before that when they played Newcastle in the Carabao Cup. I feel like everyone's forgotten about that now and just sort of focused on the last two results. It was a bit of a different sort of formation, really, and lineup from City. The one on screen is incorrect positionally. Nico O'Reilly was playing left back, Aït-Nouri was playing right back, and it was like a Rodri and Lewis double pivot in midfield. So, sort of a changing of personnel. I personally think that if you own any City assets, I certainly wouldn't sell any of them this week. That includes Mark Gahey, if anyone's sort of had him transition over to Manchester City. I think him coming in the team alone will shore him up defensively, which is good. Potentially Mateus Nunes back this weekend as well. He's had a bit of an illness, so that's why he's missed the last two. The forwards, Ben, what's your thoughts on those? Obviously, Jeremy Doku was on the bench for this one. So was Omar Marmoush, who came on for Foden. Do you think we see them start at the weekend, or do you think they're just going to keep rolling with these same attackers?
It's really difficult to predict. I would say at least one of the two is going to start, and it's one of Shirky, Foden, and possibly Haaland. Actually, sort of all things considered, that could make way, because Haaland's just played so many minutes that there is going to be a slight risk that maybe he doesn't start, or maybe he comes off a bit earlier. I think for this weekend, I don't anticipate a Ryan Aït-Nouri start. But yeah, with the attacking positions, it's going to be really difficult to predict those, and I think you've just got to roll with it for this week and take the extreme variance that we're probably going to see, and then in a week's time, you might be in a better position to make a decision on what to do with those Manchester City assets.
Yeah, 100%. I think the fixture alone is worth enough for keeping. Obviously, Wolves haven't been too bad themselves in recent weeks. They've been definitely improved defensively, so it's not going to be an easy game for City, but I think they're a less transitional team to what we've seen in those last two games, and I think it'll be a little bit easier for them at home as well. So, yeah, certainly wouldn't be selling them. I think me and Ben both will be captaining Haaland as well. So, I just I wouldn't really worry about it this week. It's more like a next week problem if you are concerned. Going into captaincy then, obviously Fantasy Football Scouts Matrix has Haaland top. You'd probably expect that with that Wolves fixture. I personally don't think he'll miss out. I know he's played a lot of minutes, but Pep started him against Exeter, so if that's kind of his problem, he definitely didn't need to start him in that one. So yeah, for me, I'd expect him to play. Obviously, he came off early as well against United, albeit 10 minutes, but still didn't play the 90 there. I still think he starts this game, and he will be my captain for this game week. Is there anyone other than him, Ben? I think that's probably more of an issue, isn't it? Is that we just haven't had that alternative to really go against Haaland pretty much all season.
No, we've not really seen that sort of reliable alternative in terms of points, other than probably Gabriel when he's been playing. And Man United at home's not a guarantee for a clean sheet either. So, yeah, I think unfortunately it probably is going to be Haaland captaincy again. And yeah, there's no sort of real emerging assets for me at a premium price point that are actually sort of making the case to put the captaincy on. You look at sort of the other options, and there is quite a big drop off down to sort of 5.71 expected points for Saka is not really what we expect from some premiums. We'd expect, 3 or 4 premiums every year to have an expected points output between probably 7 and 8. Whereas we're not really seeing that this season, and we're only really seeing Haaland, and that's just a case that we've not had those performing sort of real premiums that we maybe would have had that decision if Salah had been in good form, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to some questions then. A lot of the questions like with Man City we've kind of covered with the captaincy, what to do with X player, etc. So if like I said at the start, if you do have any questions, do get them in the comments. Ross Butler asks Semenyo to Foden this week or Foden to Bruno next week. What's your thoughts on that, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is Um, Semenyo to Foden is a sideways move in the first case, and you could get burnt by that transfer because we really don't know who's going to be starting in that. Although I do suspect Semenyo will probably start, just given he wasn't in the Champions League squad, at least not going to be until the knockout stages. I would 100% wait and see with that Manchester City game this week, and then assess whether you do that Foden to Bruno move next week. That seems like the more logical option to go for, because it leaves you with less room to be burned by the transfer if you were to do it this week.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think I wouldn't even consider Semenyo to Foden or either way. Foden to Semenyo this week is just not worth doing. Next question then is Gabriel a must buy? I don't have him personally, and he's definitely a must buy on my radar. I'm just going to be waiting until the wild card to do so. I wouldn't say this is a great entry point. United have actually really decent attacking data and have scored in a lot of games this season. So it's not great, but also it's Arsenal's defence who have been the best in the league. So there's never a bad time to buy Gabriel, and especially with the rate that he's rising as well. I think as soon as you can afford to get to him, or there's an easy route to get to him, I would probably just do it straight away. And I certainly wouldn't advise against doing it this week. What's your thoughts on Gabriel, Ben?
Yeah, complete agreement, really. He's just so consistent in terms of his points output and points return, no matter who he's playing against. So for me, he always seems to find that route to getting the points. So yeah, I wouldn't delay if you're thinking about bringing him in.
Yeah, definitely. FPL Rizwan, I think that's how you pronounce it. What's what to do with Saka, another Arsenal asset. Obviously, he was benched again at the weekend against Nottingham Forest. He started and played the full 90, I do believe, in the Champions League against Inter Milan. So the minutes are there, just not in the right competition, really, with Saka. For me, I think he starts this weekend. So for this week only, I'd be holding him for sure. If you do need funds to get to another player, i.e. Bruno Fernandes next week or something like that, he probably would be one of the first ones that I sell, just because for me he's not even in the top 4 Arsenal assets in my opinion. Just from the minutes, security is just not there at all. Where we're seeing that with the likes of Declan Rice, Gabriel, Timber, those kind of guys, they're playing pretty consistently. So yeah, for me, I'd probably hold this week, but maybe next week if you need the funds, definitely able to move him on. What do you say about that, then?
Yeah, I've got the same thought process with Saka as I do with those that are considering selling Foden. I don't think it's this week that you should be doing it, and it feels like a lot of moves should be held off a week before making with the fixture swing that we've got just around the corner. It makes sense just to hold off on that until then and really attack those fixtures that sort of swing for quite a few teams. So yeah, for me, Saka's a hold for one more week, and then let's assess after this week and see if he's a sell.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. And it sort of follows on to our next question. Should I wildcard this early? I certainly wouldn't be doing it this week. Like Ben alludes to, the fixture swings are really next week. That's when I'll be wildcarding personally. So you'll see a wildcard draft next week as well on the YouTube channel. So yeah, for me, I don't care what your team looks like, to be quite honest. If you've got 11 players, I'd still just hold it this week, go next week, where all the fixtures are swinging. You know, the likes of United turn into a nice run, Bournemouth, Chelsea, etc. There's lots of teams to jump on, and a lot of the teams that we were on, Liverpool, City, etc., their runs are starting to get a little bit tougher. So yeah, it just makes the most sense starting from next week. And a lot of people would be on Triple City, for example, like myself. There's no way I'm selling Triple City before a home fixture against Wolves. Any more advice on that, Ben?
No, to be honest, it is literally sort of the same. That's echoing the same thoughts. Really, it's this week's not the week to do anything, in my opinion. As bad as that sounds.
Yeah, indeed. It seems like one of those weeks it's where doing less is better than doing more. So if you are struggling of what transfer should I make, etc., etc., it probably our answer would be to roll it unless you can't play an 11 this week. So yeah, general advice would be that busy week next week in terms of wild cards and more chips being played. And obviously lots of free transfers as well flying about. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you do drop a like. And like I said, for the third time, any questions, get them in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Josh said, as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
See you guys
Next time. Have a good game week, everyone.